Exhaustion, because we had them quite late in life.
Yeah, okay.
So we were there was about a decade when I was just always tired. And I remember standing up after the second one was born. I was going to give a talk somewhere at a school, I think, and I thought, I know I can do this, but, it's not actually possible to die of being tired, and therefore I know I'll still be alive tomorrow. But it was like everything was a blur. We didn't have extended family nearby, so it just came down to Keith, my husband, and I to do everything.
Did you have good childcare?
Yeah, so they went 3 days a week to childcare. Both of us worked part-time. So each of us had 1 day at home, so the kids only went 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Long day care.
Yeah. And did that part-time hurt your career, would you say, looking back?
Most people didn't notice.
No, okay.
I mean, it hurt a bit financially because we weren't earning as much. But in terms of productivity, I don't think it actually made much difference.
For the period of my kids' life, I've been a bit of a workaholic, and actually, I that's partly down to them. I had twins, and I always say that I then acquired a work ethic. I learnt how to manage time and how to get stuff done, and it was really being a mother that taught me how to be a multitasking academic. I think I was quite time wasteful before that, and certainly not as focused.
Yeah.
I did definitely pull back on international travel. Had I been, a single person without kids, I would have definitely been out on the conference circuit a lot more. And so I pulled back on that, and I think that does give women's CVs often a different look. I mean, to do that, you really need a kind of an at-home spouse, right, to kind of pick up the slack, and sometimes that's possible, and sometimes it's not.
That's terrible. That's probably the worst time in my life.
Okay.
Because I was doing PhD when I had my son, and I made a terrible mistake. That time I thought my study PhD was so important to me. It's like life, I have to do it. So I took my son to nursery when he was 2 months old. I still remember I put him on the nursery floor. They shut the gate, and he just about be able to crawl to me and pulled my trousers, and scream, and I had to turn my head and walk away. Now I look, all my female PhD students or postdocs come talk to me about their maternity leave. I always encourage them, stay as long as you need. Don't rush, because after for a lifetime, stay with children. It's only once actually in a lifetime.
Looking back at it, I don't know how I did it, but so my two boys are a year apart. But it was literally just recognising that it was going to be a short period of time that they were going to be that young, and just making it work. So I did.
Did you continue to work full time during that period?
Yeah, I did. So I actually took 6 weeks off from my first son, and then 2 from my second two. I kept working. I actually went to international conferences with them as little babies, and I don't know. So I kept working, and then I used my salary to have a nanny. So that's how I dealt with the mechanics of it. But I was breastfeeding, so back and forth at uni with breastfeeding and meetings. It was all rather a blur. I'll be honest with you.
I think the university system is fairly flexible, and I know that my colleagues and my heads of department were all very supportive, and there was childcare right next door, and all through, I didn't stop working. In fact, my son went to childcare from 6 weeks, but I breastfed him until he was 2, and in the end they said to me, you can stop coming now. The reason I kept going full time was because I had some advice from people who said, don't go part-time, because all you'll do is end up with the teaching, and you'll lose your step in the ladder. So if you can, try and keep going full-time. So I did. I think childcare was great, and the fact that it's so close, you can go and visit during the day. So I didn't, as much as I would have loved to have stayed at home with him, I still was able to see quite a bit of him. We were very close.